Hello, I'm James Ives. Welcome to the Principia podcast. Today I am joined by J.D. Daughtery. J.D. is in charge of the Deep Questions and Dark Chocolate conversations that happen here at Prin, and he has lots of influential and interesting topics to share with the community that could help student life. So we have chosen 3 questions that we're going to be diving in today. The first question is, David Brooks wrote that faith is sensing a presence, not buying an argument. How do you go about sensing a presence? Can you break that down for me, Daughtery?
Yeah, David Brooks is this awesome New York Times columnist, and he had that in one of his recent columns, and I like it because here at a college, any liberal arts college like this, it's a rich environment of debate and discussion. And as you struggle to articulate your ideas, they really formulate inside your head really well. And that's what I love about it. But even deeper than that is, can you sense a presence? Not just argue and debate and discuss spiritual ideas, but can you sense a presence, this presence of this infinite spiritual love or good that created us, that guides us. And as college students, you guys are hitting the most pivotal transition of your life where, you leave college and you've been on just somebody else's program, a teacher's or your parents or your Sunday school teacher's program your whole life. And boom, it's all up to you at age 22, which is awesome. But it's cool to go into that feeling prepared. If you've sensed a presence of God's infinite guiding love, that makes it so much less stressful when you hit graduation and you're boom, going out there on your own. Where are you going to go? What are you going to do? Who are you going to live with? All those big questions. I remember that time vividly, and there's part of me that wished my college training had given me solo time, like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Mrs. Eddy, every great spiritual thinker. They all come to different spiritual conclusions, but the one thing they all have in common is that they sought long periods of solo time in the wilderness. And Jesus on the mountain, Mrs. Eddy at Red Rock and Lynn, they all had their places where they went. And that gets into another topic, metanoia, but I don't know where you want to go from here.
I would say sensing a presence, the idea that you go throughout your day in college or in school and you have a feeling of good or God is there with you, protecting you, or you feel a sense of harmony. That's how I would describe it.
It's beautiful, yeah.
I don't know if I felt that.
Oh, really?
I don't know if I felt myself sensing a presence per se. There's certainly been times where I've really had high positive highs and then really lows. But I think the idea of sensing a presence comes with consistency, of consistently feeling good and doing certain things throughout your day that help you to reach that. Mm-hmm. I don't know. How would you say people can achieve that? How can people sense or feel God when life is so crazy?
You have to seek it out. You have to prioritize it. And so that's why I started this little club called Metanoia Expeditions in 2003. So the first trip was to Mexico. We went to Colorado, Puerto Rico, Florida, Michigan. But it's really hard because Principia offers you all these great different activities to do. And the average Principia college student does too much because it's all so good. It's like being in a big smorgasbord of great food. You eat too much. Yeah. And it's impossible not to. There's so many good things here. So what I did was I started metanoia means a direct knowing of God. And so the only way to do that is with time. And so my favorite trip that we evolved into from backpacking trips to car camping was we went to Panhandle of Florida, spring break. They got 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week to just go out on this beautiful beach, 7 miles of undeveloped beach, and be totally alone all day and do the journaling, do the opening the heart, observe the dolphins, the manatees swimming by. That kind of beauty with all alone with your thoughts for that long, you can't help but feel something. And I would ask one question at the end of those trips is, what did this trip do for you spiritually? And those students would say, never before in my life have I felt God's presence like I have the past few days. And so bottom line, in a busy college life, you got to be intentional about carving out that time to do it. And so on campus here, I can't sell it, but we have this beautiful little writer's cabin about the size of this studio, about 10 by 10. And it's down a 5-minute walk from the Bluffs. And I put up flyers advertising that I have the key. You can come use it. Nobody does it.
I would love to use it
all right,
sometime.
I'll get it to you.
For sure. I've been talking to one of my friends about doing like a little overnight camping trip to the writer's cabin.
Perfect.
And I think that, like what you're saying, this trip that you organized, I think it's a great thing. I've been taking a course this semester in outdoor recreation and its effects on mental health and physical well-being.
Wow.
And I think that prioritizing time in your day when in college to just go take a walk at the Bluffs, center yourself, write in a journal, all those type of outdoor activities can be extremely therapeutic and can help keep you centered. I think staying centered is the best way to maintain one's mental health and to keep motivation to keep going and achieving goals and different things that you may be working on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But again, I love that you're being intentional about it. You're purposely carving out that time.
Yeah.
And that's what's got to happen. And most people don't do that.
I haven't, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a few times gone to the Bluffs just to, like, sit and relax, but I'm starting to become more and more influenced with this class I'm taking and just different things I've been doing lately. Like, I went rock climbing this weekend, and it really it was good for me. It helped me get out of my room. It helped me think about some things going on in my life that were personal a little bit more intentionally. It just overall, kind of gave me those positive endorphins that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling like really low, and I'm like, if you can just motivate yourself to go, or even like a walk every day, that's the first step. You may, like, for me personally, I don't feel like that would be enough. I would need something a little bit more engaging. But I think like outdoor rec is extremely important for one's mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a quote I love from Dawson Trotman that angels whisper to a man when he goes for a walk. And I find that true. I go out to our cross-country course right across from the gatehouse and, almost 2 miles every morning. And, I never see a person out there. You're out there with the deer and the birds. And it really is a wonderful way to start the day. And there's so much science. So the Japanese now call it forest bathing, where they bust people out of Tokyo and just a massively packed city, and they get them out in the forest for a while. And it's just hugely popular. There's so much science backing up what that does for you mentally to reset. Like if your computer, your phone wigs out, you got to just turn it off. And
I've heard that term before.
Reset.
It's when someone fully immerses themselves in the wild, takes a hike, and spend some time meditating in the woods. It's not like you have to do that necessarily, but it is a great method of letting loose and centering oneself.
Yeah. I love that you said you go for a walk by the Bluffs, because Bernard Maybeck intentionally put this college here because he said the greatest feature of this region is the rivers. So, we're up 300 feet over the river. You can see 10 miles or something like that. And I don't know. I remember when I was a student long ago, I would go out after writing a paper and just kind of, let it all go. And something about that long view that really helps release all the stress.
For sure.
Yeah.
More about like the spiritual side of it. Why do you think your students said that they felt more spiritually connected to God? Or what's the idea of like maybe God being with them?
On those trips? Oh, man. So I have 8 pages here of references I pulled together from some of the world's best thinkers on, and that's, they say don't put people out there, especially young people who have never done this before. So for some people, it's terribly scary to be alone with your thoughts for 8 hours a day. Some people don't want to do it at all. And so that's why they say you got to prepare people. So I would walk through these different ideas from these great thinkers on what that means and how, I guess my favorite one is, the end of Science and Health. There's the Fruitage chapter, and it talks about this woman who had a life-threatening illness. We don't know what it is, but she said she waited with longing intensity, holding her breath. She said deep into her hungering thought sank the infinite meaning of that I, the God, and words are inadequate to convey the fullness of that spiritual uplifting. So bottom line, our heart is our core. That's the Latin word for our heart, is our core. So you've got to somehow open your core to really get open to mentally establishing and energetically embodying that infinite love that created us. And when you do that, oh man, things change. And all the worry, whatever is worrying in your life with health, relationships, or money, whatever, those seem to be the big three: health, relationships, and money. They just kind of settle, and you start to trust. My friend Sandy Wilder calls it trusting truth. The truth that we are spiritual, perfect, whole, immortal, instead of the story that's rattling in your head, the monkey mind is rattling with.
Yeah, for sure.
And he breaks that down in a neat way.
Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that you have a spiritual connection to God. I think like nature can help you find that, because all the quiet, all the noise that's going on all the time, or negative influences, it's not there,
Yep.
So taking a step back, at least every day, to center oneself, I think is important. I'd say that spiritual connection to God, that idea, it's almost indescribable.
Yep.
It's hard to describe what that's like, but if I were to put it in most simple terms for maybe people that go like, I don't necessarily believe in God, or like I don't understand the idea of God at all, I would put it sort of like at ease, calm. You feel like everything's right.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that comes immediately, but if you practice this, if you intentionally go outside.
You've had those moments? It sounds like you've had those moments.
Yeah, I have. I've had a few, not very many, but I feel like it comes with practice. The more that you incorporate, I would say, more healthy lifestyle and putting sort of outdoor recreation into your routine, as well as self-reflection, kind of working on personal growth. I feel like you will slowly but surely find that inner peace. And I feel like that is probably the best description towards a relationship with God looks like, from my perspective. I don't know, what would you say?
The reason I started Metanoia in 2003, I saw this documentary on ABC. It was called, there's an organization in Oregon called the Catherine Freer Wilderness Therapy Group. And so they would take juvenile delinquents, kids who were struggling with life in whatever way, depression, anxiety, delinquency, just lots of trouble, and drugs and alcohol. And so their parents would send them on this trip. It was many thousands, I think it was $6,000. And they would wake them up at 5 a.m. and not tell them where they're going. And they're like, you're going on a 3-week backpacking trip with these people you don't know. And so they'd take them out, they'd hike them out. And the first night they'd take their boots and their headlamps so they couldn't run away. And so, it's tough stuff as these kids process their life for 3 weeks in the wilderness. But something about the wilderness enables them to do that. They have really good counselors on the trip. And then they have a 3-day solo at the end. And just an incredible record they had of turning kids' lives around. And so, obviously, that's not a huge issue here at Prin, but it does enable them to take their break and really reset their minds so they come back into the semester in a much better mindset, ready to go.
I mean, breaking unhealthy habits as well can be challenging.
Yeah.
I know at Prin, I mean, it's not as extreme as maybe you described, but like there are students possibly, and like I've heard things where there are students who have struggled with alcohol or drugs. And doing these type of activities has helped rehabilitate or just help them to make better decisions. And do less of maybe unhealthy activities and start bridging more towards a healthier lifestyle. I think we're ready to move on to the next question.
Good.
You good? Okay. What would you do if you were 10 times bolder? Let's get into boldness. How would you define that?
So, interesting studies that when they talk to people who are in their last week or so of life, if they have regrets, their regrets are not about what they did in their life, it's what they didn't do. And so, a lot of us have fear about taking whatever big steps we dream about in life. And I love that saying. Travis Thomas was just here, and he was repeating the saying, leap and the net will appear. And it's just an interesting concept. If you leap, that net will appear for you. And so it's really, many people have to muster the boldness to take that big step or the big risk of starting a company, moving to a new place, dating someone, breaking up with someone, all those big leaps that people have to take that you don't know what's next. That's a big risk. And so, again, what people regret is not doing those things. And so that's where I try to challenge myself or challenge students with that question, what would you do if you're 10 times bolder? Because if you're 10 times bolder, I know I would have done a lot of different things in life. And
strive to be bold.
Right. Because that's, what's that saying about being out on the end of the branch? That's where the fruit is, when you're out on the end of the branch of the tree. And that's where life gets rich. And that's when reward. And that's, I studied the billionaires like Elon Musk a lot, and he took a massive risk with Tesla. He knew there was maybe a 10% chance it would succeed.
Incredibly bold, yeah.
Yeah. And he had a plan to move into his mother-in-law's basement when he ran out of money. And now he's the richest guy in the world. And so
I feel like be bold, but don't be irresponsible.
Right.
Don't take so much risk that if it goes bad, you don't have a backup plan and you completely fail.
He's different that way. He didn't have a backup plan, really. His saying is, it doesn't matter how risky something is if it's that important. And so conquering climate change is that important.
Oh, yeah.
He feels, with the rockets that getting to Mars and creating an interplanetary species is that important. So he risked,
colonizing Mars.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possible?
I don't know. That's, I like what he's doing with Tesla. I don't really, I guess he feels he wants to keep human consciousness going.
He wants to keep it
If we blow it here on Earth, he wants to have it somewhere else. But Mars does not look like an attractive place to live to me at all.
No, it may not be attractive, but I don't feel like that's his priority.
Right. He wants to keep human consciousness.
He's trying to preserve the human race.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think there's potential with it. I think that type of project, that there have been a lot of small things that have indicated that it's a possibility. And so it's definitely worth pursuing in the science and work that he's doing. But I think that it's a huge project that could take decades, 20,
he doesn't think so.
50, 80 years.
He thinks
Maybe
it
might exceed his lifetime. Interplanet traveling, colonization, that's a bit beyond where we are technology-wise.
Yeah, everybody said that about electric cars too, and he's done it. So that's what I love about him, is he is 10 times bolder. He's got that completely unlimited mindset. He's willing to take massive risks, and he's doing it. As crazy as he is on Twitter, it's weird because with genius comes madness. On Twitter, he's a petulant, trolling child. On
I think
Tesla,
the
he's
idea
a
of
visionary.
risk really scares people.
Oh yeah.
But I think what the person asking this question to someone, maybe what they're trying to achieve is to help that person just to be a little bit more bold. So it doesn't mean like, hey, everybody, let's go take massive risks and just be bold. I mean, do so if you feel that's right for you. But I think that with boldness, how I would attack this question if someone's asking me this is I would do some self-reflection. I think, what are some things that I'm regretting in my life right now? I want to make some big changes. This is going to be really good for me. What can I do to be bold and get that going? Like this podcast, for example, was a really bold decision. It just came on me one day. I was like, I want to start a podcast. I want to connect with people here at Prin more, and I want to spread people's stories.
Nice. And
I thought it was going to be really hard. And at first, figuring it out what I was going to do, it was a little challenging. I had to talk to a lot of different people. But I got it started, and here I am. So I feel like being bold is rewarding, but it also takes determination. Don't give up.
That's what's incredible about being your age right now is with AI. I just saw a YouTube video, 200 ways you can use AI to...
AI tech?
Yeah. I mean, there's one website where you can just say, start a company for me. It'll start a company, give it a name, give you a website, give you a logo, boom, it's done. And
I haven't.
So it's 10 times.
I haven't
It's
found.
10xing
You have
what
to
you can
pay
do.
for those, right?
Some you do, some you don't. But
Some you do, some you don't.
but it's 10xing, 20xing what you can do. And if you just have exactly what you did, the initiative to power through the first initial hard steps and get to where the fruit is. And, so the world is your oyster in a way like it never has been before.
AI technology, we're moving into an age where everything will eventually be generated.
Mm-hmm.
That is the idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little scary. I worry that AI technology is taking away from human originality or artistic ability. But I also feel like AI can be used as a tool to help us advance our artistry by getting done like the busy work or the hard stuff that we don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of any good examples, but I know I've used like ChatGPT before and other AI tech to help me like find information faster than maybe if I was flipping through a 500-page book to find a specific quote, or I would just put the name of the book and say, please find this information for me, and it would be there, and then I could read that and in my own creative and inventive mind translate that information with my own work. I think it's good to like use AI as a research tool, but don't use it to plagiarize or cheat.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a fascinating, one of the fastest growing jobs now is prompt engineer. So learning how to prompt ChatGPT and talk to it in ways that works, because if you can do that, I mean, these are jobs that are making over $200,000 a year. And you just need to master how to speak AI language. And so the big saying, I'm not an expert in AI at all, but I read a lot about it. And so what I keep hearing is, you may not lose your job to AI, but you could lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI. And so that's.
I feel like AI is almost even a better search engine than Google. I think of it like a search engine because I'll ask Google a specific question with the specific intent that I want specific information. And then I have to search through like 8-10 links, and I may or may not find exactly what I want. But with AI, if I give them a specific prompt with specifically what I want, it's more likely that I'll get exactly what I want faster. I feel like I've asked AI questions about a lot of stuff, and it's helped me find information that I needed 10 times faster than Google.
Yep.
Which I think
I've been corresponding Wednesday night. I have this author named Jenny Lee coming on to my class, and she was unaware of it. So I said, here's ChatGPT's summary of your book. She has a book called True Yoga. And I said, is this accurate? And it has here's the 9 main points of this book. And she's like, oh my God, that's perfectly accurate. Yeah. That's exactly what I was trying to say. And they summarized it super well. So it's fascinating.
It's incredible. Yeah. What are some things, if you're comfortable sharing, that you would want to be more bold in your life?
Yeah. Gosh, I wish I could have a do-over button. Well, before I came here, I got a call in August, and starting a company is the thing that has been haunting me my whole life. I could do that, and I did that. I started a solar brokerage called Infinite Solar. And a year ago right now, I was in Salt Lake City at SolarCon, the largest solar conference in the world. And so I was getting that going, and I got the call to come back here. And I just, there's a little part of me that wishes I would have stayed with that because it was starting to really grow.
Yeah.
Because I was doing it in a way that was unique. I was just a one-man band, so I didn't have sales managers and owners taking cuts of my profits when I had a solar deal. But so I could keep the prices way down. So I thought I had a unique business model just as a one guy. But then coming back here, I just recalled I was going through some of, I would ask students at the end of metanoia trips, what did the trip do for you spiritually? And some of them wrote these beautiful paragraphs on this is the turning point in my life. There's one woman named Jordan Green, and she is now one of the top therapists in the country, where she's working with Apple engineers to get therapy, because therapy's $150 an hour. Only the rich can afford therapy. Yeah. And so she's trying to make it so it's super affordable. And some, obviously AI is doing some level of, I'm not sure I'd want to get therapy from AI.
AI could be your therapy.
And it works for some people because
It does.
it's been trained.
I've had problems in the past, just things are difficult, and I've asked AI, what is like the best resources or what is like the best tips that you would have for me in this situation? And it's like, according to my knowledge gathered from the best, psychologists in the world, here's what I would recommend you do in this specific situation. And that, like, it generated its own content. It generated its own response based off research that it gathered. So it wasn't like just giving me some paragraph that I found somewhere else on the internet.
Yeah.
It was giving me its own, the AI generated its own response to my question.
Mm-hmm.
And it was incredibly helpful. And it really helped me figure out how to get out of that situation at that time.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. But that your company, that's really cool.
Yeah. And so this summer, I'll have a chance to kind of try to restart it with 3 months of time. So that's where I'm trying to be bold. And because I was at this conference a year ago, and one of the speakers there said something that really hit me right in the heart. And he said, what if, because the climate change is a massive issue. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change just said what we do in the next 7 years will determine what happens on Earth for the next 3 centuries.
Yeah.
And so we're in a massive pivot, inflection point, turning point with climate change. And so so one guy said, imagine waking up in 10 years, opening your computer, seeing a headline, the solar industry saved planet Earth. I was like, wow, he's like, you guys are part of something special. You need to get after it. You need to do your jobs well, and you need to exponentially grow what you're doing, because whether humanity survives is coming down to you, the solar industry. And and Elon's got a plan. He's in his last investor day, he had this slide about 240 terawatts of energy needed to power Earth, everything on Earth. And it's doable with solar and wind and the other geothermal and hydropower. So it's doable.
That sounds incredible.
I'd love to be part of it, yeah.
Yeah. And you wanted to help contribute to that.
Yeah, and I'll try and keep that going. That's the beauty of having summer break here.
Absolutely.
I can keep that going. So
for me, when it comes to being bold, I think one thing that I feel like I'm at baby steps with my life right now. Like, some big changes for me, I'm trying to get outdoors more. I've had the pattern of kind of like just staying indoors and like being kind of depressed, or doing activities that are kind of mentally draining, like playing video games excessively, watching garbage on TV, just kind of feeling like I'm living through the motions, going to class, doing homework, watch TV.
So what would a bold step be for you?
Yeah. And I started realizing just how unhealthy that is, and how I actually have a lot of really great skills and talents, and I should be working on those. And I was in a relationship, and I felt like in that relationship I wasn't working on those, and that relationship wasn't helping motivate me to be the best version of myself, because my partner also wasn't, doing much. So I left that relationship, and I'm starting to get out more and focus on myself, going to the gym, working out, eating a healthier, balanced diet.
Nice.
These are goals of mine that I'm trying to build towards. And spending less screen time and intentionally immersing myself in nature more. Nice. So I can connect spiritually more with God. And then I say, like, my bigger goals would be like success with this podcast, getting as many people on here as I can, and spreading stories, and improving my relationships with others. I think like at this point in my life, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do with journalism, and that's where I get my joy. That's what's important to me. Yeah.
So with that boldness, are you reaching out to others in ways that can be vulnerable?
I'm trying to.
Yeah.
It's hard to be vulnerable.
Because it feel risky? Is that why?
Yeah, I have one good friend that I can be vulnerable with.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say I have very many people I can be vulnerable with, but I feel like just that will come with time.
Mm-hmm.
I build trust, and then I can be more vulnerable. But I think a big part of it is intentionally just putting myself out there and not giving up. And I think that's also like a big thing with dating. I've had a lot of experience with like Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, and I would say that it's worth it if you pursue it with the intention of really getting to know someone and caring.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that like on those apps are just like to hook up, or they're not taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. And it can be a little frustrating, like weeding through that to find like a real person that you have a real connection with. But it's definitely rewarding. My last relationship was someone I met on Tinder and was with them for a long time, and there's a lot of personal growth, and it helped me be a better person. And I'm talking to some people right now, and I feel like it's going pretty well. So for those who are single, who want to work on their dating goals, I would just recommend pursuing it with an intention of knowing yourself first, and then seeing if the person that you're talking to is as dedicated as you are and is a good fit for you, like really matches who you are and what your values are.
So I don't know anything about online dating. Are there websites out there that are specifically tailored to this, to people who are into spirituality or whatever?
Yeah. I'm sure there's eHarmony.
Oh, okay.
But I think that's like for an older audience.
Yeah.
People in their 20s generally stick to like Bumble, Tinder, Hinge.
Okay.
Those are like the big three that people my age are on. I've had experience with those, and it can be good sometimes. Sometimes it can be a little bit draining, but you find good people, and if you don't give up, something good will come your way. Cool. That's how I put it.
Cool.
What are your current mental boundaries?
Oh, yeah. That's a brutal question. I think I love the Bible verse, with God all things are possible. And that's where I hope my mentality gets to someday. And that's why I put up a poster of the CSO bulletin board with the rugby championship, because that team really accomplished a lot. Our basketball team did wonderful this year. They really broke some limits and overachieved. And I was on an overachieving baseball team back when I was a college student here. And it's a wonderful feeling when you get together with a group of people and you go way higher than you thought you could. And so current mental boundaries, I certainly have. Stephen Covey describes it as an abundance mentality and a scarcity mentality. And I grew up in a time and in a family that had a scarcity mentality. They're wonderful, awesome, incredible people. But, at that time, people just weren't, there was not near as much wealth in the country. And so to look around and see how can we break out of this into true financial freedom, we couldn't see it. We were struggling, bouncing the bills around. Every month we'd have to not pay one bill to make it work financially. As a kid, you're not fully aware of this, but you're aware that you can't buy a baseball glove or whatever. So I think my lifetime has been letting go of that scarcity mentality and to really trying to expand my mind to accept the fact that whether it's wealth or love or health, it's all infinite, and to exchange those limited views of reality for in understanding infinity, that there really are no limits to the good that can come. And there may be reasons why people aren't rich, because I think when people are rich, it's so easy to drop into I sold Teslas and Subarus for a while, and I had some good years. And when you have those good years, you think, man, I'm pretty good at this. Look at how good I'm doing. And your ego, it's natural. It's human nature. It goes. Yeah. And so trying to balance that unlimited mentality with accepting the fact that there may be a reason I'm not rich. It may be the way the Creator is keeping me humble and keeping me understanding that everything comes from that infinite love, not from my efforts or my smartness, my business acumen, whatever. So it's a tricky balance.
I feel like what a mental boundary that universally a lot of young people struggle with is self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
How they view themselves and what they think they deserve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm at a point where I've decided that everyone deserves love, respect, and the agency and ability to pursue their dreams. Those are like the top three. And love could be, friendships, relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone deserves to have friendships and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships on a whole spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So platonic, romantic, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody deserves respect. Everybody deserves to be treated equally.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone deserves to be, acknowledged for the fruits of their labor.
Mm-hmm.
To be, and I feel like when someone doesn't get one of those three,
Mm-hmm.
they start to shrink back a bit,
Hmm.
and they start to limit themselves and go, oh, I can't do that. I'm not like Arnold, I don't got those big muscles, Arnold Schwarzenegger, or that'll never be me, or I've been in the trenches so long, I don't think it's gonna work out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's like all these mental blocks that come in,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say like putting yourself out there and committing to your goals,
Mm-hmm.
and socially not really caring what people think. I think once as you get to a point where you love yourself
Mm-hmm.
genuinely and you really just are done with the noise,
Mm-hmm.
you just don't care what anyone else has to say
Mm-hmm.
about you,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you can really start growing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the people that are going to give you the type of attention that you do want, it'll come. Like when you stop caring so much, the negative biases or judgments or bullying or whatever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to notice it as much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not going to have much of an effect on you,
Mm-hmm.
which will lead to like positive growth.
Mhm.
And those who will notice your happiness, your joy, that's attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And
I want some
they
of that.
will attract to you. They'll
Yeah.
want to be part of that
Yeah.
because it's contagious.
Mhm.
It makes them feel good to be around someone who also feels good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it means
Well said.
switching up your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that can be really hard,
Mhm.
especially if for like a long time you've struggled with depression or
Mm-hmm.
different things. And you don't have to do it completely alone either.
Mm-hmm.
There are resources. There's
Mhm.
therapy. There are mentors, friends, people you can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Even like a stranger that you might not know.
Mm-hmm.
If you get a good feeling
Mhm.
and you're feeling like this is too much to handle, and they give off like a good vibe, have that conversation.
Yeah. And you know what I love? I don't know if you were there that night in Deep Questions, Dark Chocolate. We do this on every Monday night. But that one guy said at the end, he was really quiet. So I said, anything you're thinking? And he said, how do you ask for help? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, man, Nike, just do it. And so he opened up a little bit. And that group really responded to him. And it's fun to see him embraced by that group now. And it's fun to see him doing a lot better.
Really?
So.
Yeah. I feel like asking for help, it means you're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
It means you're reaching out something that's hard for you, that you've come to terms where you're like, I don't know what to do,
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's never good to feel hopeless.
Mm-hmm.
And so being vulnerable with people that you can trust is a great thing because they can open up your eyes to positive possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I've felt that way loads of times. But I took that jump, and it's okay to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
This semester, there was one point where I was feeling pretty down about my social life
Mm-hmm.
and just like some personal things with my family. And I really didn't feel like I had anyone I could talk to or reach out to at all. And I had this very negative perspective and of like those around me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I realized, well, I need help. And I'm just going to take a little bit of risk and see what happens. So I asked for some help. And the most unsuspected people that I didn't always have the greatest thoughts about, or like I just didn't feel comfortable talking to them before, all these like negative biases I had just kind of went away. Nice. Because they really surprised me. They really cared, and they really gave me some good ideas. So hopefully that motivates you. Like, if you need help, there are people you wouldn't expect that may have something good to say to you.
Yeah, it's so cool. You took that risk and it turned out well.
Yeah.
And so, how did you muster the courage to do that?
I feel like I got to such a low point where it was either I asked for help or it's just going to get really bad. I didn't know what I was going to do. And the kind of like not knowing what I'm going to do and just feeling very bad and also thinking I might do something not great kind of, scared me. Yeah. So it's like, well, I need to do something about this, you know.
I don't know if you're familiar with Brene Brown, but she's really brought this concept of vulnerability, into the public consciousness. Are you familiar with her TED Talk?
No, I haven't.
So anyway, it's one of the most viewed TED Talks ever, and she can't watch it because I don't know why she can't watch it, but I think it was, 30 million views, something like that. And so anyway, it really struck a nerve where she's talking about vulnerability as courage, and that all these studies about, what makes us human is the desire to connect. And then there's this recent Harvard study that just came out about how, they're studying human happiness and all the different factors that lead to human happiness. And their conclusion over the study of a number of people over a number of years was it's all about human connection, the quality of our relationships and the depth of our relationships. And so, you nailed it. Good for you.
I feel like in today's society, I don't know if this applies to everyone, but I've definitely felt it with my male friends from time to time. Some of my past relationships that I don't have anymore, thankfully. But the idea of vulnerability is weakness for a man. And for a man to be vulnerable with another man, it is not always a great thing. There were times where, I was really struggling with something, and I had some friends, and I reached out, and I'm like, hey, this is really bugging me. And they're like, well, you're being a bitch, man. Like, what the fuck? And I was just like, well, gee, that really makes me feel better, And the idea was like, just toughen it up, Like, yeah, you're a guy. That's what we do. We take the punches and we work it out and we suffer. Like, that's our role in society. That's what we're meant for.
You feel like that's changing though?
I feel like for me in my journey, I have friends that are a little bit more open-minded than that, that understand that like it's okay for a man to be vulnerable sometimes, as long as he's not like having a pity party, like as long as he's working towards bettering his situation, and that's why he's reaching out for help. Yeah. I feel like that's good. I feel like the idea that male toxic masculinity, the idea of you must be strong and take the punches, still exists in our culture, but hopefully we can fight that.
There's the online therapy called You Will here. You think people use that?
I haven't heard anyone.
Confident, really? Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure there are some.
But you've also mentioned having a good relationship with your male role model in your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's kind of
Paul Needham?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your RC.
Yeah. Paul is someone I can be vulnerable with.
Yeah.
And I've talked to him about a lot of personal issues. And
so is there something about his personality or character that enables you to be vulnerable with him?
I feel like what a lot of men get off on is if they're vulnerable, they're seen as weak, so they must always like be strong and hold this fake screen that everything's okay and that they can take it and that they're the top G, they're the top guy, you know, when in reality, internally, they're struggling. And what I like about Paul is he gives me that top G energy. He's a really great guy. He's well-rounded. He knows what he likes. He respects himself. He's collected, which is a great thing. But he also recognizes that he has challenges and he has flaws. And he can talk to me about those things, and he can talk to me about, I can talk to him about like issues I'm having. I feel like being able to have the maturity to recognize that you're not perfect is the first step in kind of defeating that narrative.
Cool.
Yeah. Let's see how we're doing on time. Yeah. I think that's going to conclude today's podcast.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, James. Doing a great job.
Really
Great
enjoyed
show.
it.
Yeah.
Have a good day.
You too. Take care, man.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.